Well, I will start telling a little bit about the Atlantic rainforest. This is the most ancient forest in Brazil in terms of evolution, and it's also the most endangered forest because all the economical cycles in Brazil went through the Atlantic rainforest. Started with sugarcane in the northeast, and coffee mainly in the state of São Paulo, and then the other economical cycles that we had. So from the original cover, there are only around 10% left of the Atlantic rainforest, and it's a biodiversity hotspot defined by Myers, and there is a lot of concern about preserving the fragments that are left and reconnect them whenever possible using native species to establish corridors. So although Brazil is better known for the Atlantic, for the Amazon forest, the Atlantic forest is also very important in terms of its biological dimensions, and also because of the services the forest is supporting the largest part of the Brazilian population. We have around 125 million Brazilians living within the domain of the Atlantic forest. So all water and other services the forest can provide are still being provided by this very little that's been left from the Atlantic forest. In the state of São Paulo, we have the largest remnants of Atlantic forest, not because there was a concern about preserving it, but because the Serra do Mar, the coastal mountains, were too steep to plant coffee in the 1800s. So it was left covered with the forest, and more recently we had from the 1960 onwards, there was a lot of pressure in the state on establishing parks and reserves, and therefore more than 50% of the remnants left in the state of São Paulo are within state parks. So we have a very nice chain of parks that comes across the coastal part from the state of São Paulo, almost from the border with Rio to the border with Paraná state. And this importance of this forest in terms of biodiversity and biodiversity conservation and sustainable use was one of the reasons that triggered the scientific community in the state of São Paulo working in this large umbrella that characterization, conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem services embraces, to take to FAPESP, this is the State of São Paulo Research Foundation, is equivalent of the American NSF, the concern of establishing a research program on biodiversity and biodiversity conservation and sustainable use. So in 1995, we started to discuss with the scientific director of FAPESP the possibility of FAPESP starting and keeping and supporting a research program on biodiversity for the state of São Paulo, not specifically for the Atlantic forest, but also covering the areas of Cerrado, the Brazilian savannas, that we also have very little left in the state of São Paulo, and are also a biodiversity hotspot in Myers classification. So from 95 to the end of 98, the scientific community, a group of scientists, organized themselves, prepared a science plan for a research program on biodiversity and discussed it with FAPESP many times until by the end of '98 we presented the proposal of a research program and also 18 large thematic research projects to be analyzed and evaluated by FAPESP in terms of financing them. And these projects had in common the idea of using the internet to integrate all the scientists and institutions, to have a data bank on species that was freely available, that could be fed from the scientist from his lab, so it had to be a very well developed in terms of using the, at that time, new tools of connecting very rapidly people around the state. And in the beginning of '99, when these projects started to be approved in their merit, and also the idea of the program, and this was done by an international panel of reviewers that approved the idea of a research program, FAPESP decided in March '99 to launch the BIOTA FAPESP, the Biodiversity Characterization, Conservation, and Sustainable Use Research Program. So this was the first of the environmental programs of FAPESP. It was, it started with for a period, so FAPESP was aiming to support the program for 10 years, always evaluating the projects by the ad hoc referees and following all this high standard that FAPESP has on evaluation of programs and projects. And so once the BIOTA program started, we started to feed our data bank on inventories and distribution of species in the state of São Paulo. We decided to update the map of the fragments of forest, Atlantic forest and Cerrado in the state of São Paulo to have a real, the reality of what's been left. And in terms of Cerrado, for instance, we have about 8,000 fragments in the state of São Paulo, and only 400 of these fragments have more than 200 hectares. It's a minimum size to keep the large mammals that are typical of the savanna. So that's what I said in the beginning. Preserving is not enough. We have to reconnect fragments, and this is one of the new objectives of the program, and I'm going to talk a little bit more later on. But in '99, when we started, so we started to feed the data bank, and we started to discuss also the idea of having an international evaluation every year of the results that we were having, not the individual project results, because this is evaluated by the system of FAPESP, but the result of the program itself, so the synergy among the projects and the synergy among researchers in the state of São Paulo. In 2001, we decided to launch a scientific journal online. This is Biota Neotropica, that's now on its 13th volume, and it's indexed by the Web of Knowledge, so it's a very good standard journal for Latin America, and it published results from biodiversity in Latin America, not only Brazil. In 2001, 2002, we decided that it was also important to have a sub-program focused on bioprospection, on identifying new molecules or processes that could be of economic value. We had one pilot project that was approved in this line in '99. It resulted in was very successful in advancing the knowledge in terms of bioprospection of the Atlantic forest. And then we decided that it was the time to establish a network. In 2006 and 2007, during one of the evaluations that we have, annual evaluations, we started to discuss that we were not reaching the policy community. We were not reaching, were not producing information that could be used to improve the legal framework of biodiversity conservation in the state. That was one of our objectives right at the start. So we had meetings with the State Secretary of Environment and also with NGOs like CI, World Wildlife Fund, and in 2007 and 2008 we made an effort to translate the information that was in our data bank, cross that information of species distribution with the information of the mapping of the fragments or the remnants of native vegetation in the state of São Paulo, and we produced in this way indexes of biodiversity importance, and with that we were able to establish a series of priority areas for biodiversity conservation and also for biodiversity restoration. At that moment we realized that restoration was going to play a very important role in terms of reconnecting fragments of Cerrado and of Atlantic forest. So in 2008, the end of 2008, we published a book and a series of maps showing these priority areas. This book and the maps were adopted by the state government, and they started to be used on the improvement of legal frameworks. So today we have more than 20 legal instruments. This can be resolutions of the state secretary, this can be decrees of the governor, or this can be laws approved by the state parliament, that on its starting say, based on the results of the BIOTA FAPESP program, the government decides to establish a new conservation unit in the Restingas. This is the coastal areas of Bertioga, or inland as well. The same map was used to do the agro-zoning, where you could have expansion of sugarcane plantation. So it was not only used by the State Secretary of Environment, but it was also used by the State Secretary of Agriculture to do this zoning of expansions of sugarcane. So in 2009, it was to be the last year of the BIOTA program. Our 10-year terms was coming to an end, but based on the results we had in terms of training people, in 10 years we trained more than 150 MSc students and 110 PhD students and around 70 postdocs. We published papers abroad in international journals of high impact like Nature and Science, and in average the impact factor of the publications was higher than the Brazilian average in the same areas. And the fact that we managed to do this connection between the advance of knowledge and policy making and policy decisions, FAPESP asked us to prepare a science plan for more 10 years of support. So in 2009 we had large meetings of the BIOTA, always with the scientific community, and we prepared a new science plan that will take us to 2020. And by the end of 2009, FAPESP approved the renewal of its support, so now the program will run for another few years, and I think that we are in a very good position to be used as a model, and it is being used as model by other Brazilian states. So we have BIOTA programs in Minas Gerais, we have it in Mato Grosso do Sul, we have it in Bahia, and other states are using it. And it was also used by the Brazilian Research Council, CNPq, to launch a national program on biodiversity research, on biodiversity characterization, conservation, and restoration. So I think it's a Brazilian experience that can be used to foster biodiversity science and the importance of connecting science and the policy community and society, and this is one of the reasons of the success of the program. The success can also be evaluated by the fact that last year, in 2012, we made joint calls with the National Science Foundation, with the British NERC, for bringing together teams of Brazilians based in the state of São Paulo, and North American in one case and British in the other case, to work together on biodiversity research. It's recognized as a partner program of Diversitas International. So it really was one of our aims in the last 2-3 years to get sort of this international visibility of the program, and we've managed that because in 2010 we published in Science a report telling the history of the program and how we made this connection in terms of improving the legal framework on biodiversity conservation in the state of São Paulo. Now that we are establishing IPBS, the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service, that was approved in Panama City last April, and is going to have the first meeting starting Sunday, so January 2013. The BIOTA will be there showing how to produce a significant advance in knowledge in terms of biodiversity science, and use that also to improve the legal framework. The other results that was also very important for us to get the support of FAPESP is that the Bioprospection Network has also produced results, and we have now about 8 patents deposited with the results of this network. So we are also making the connection with the productive sector. One of our main aims in this new, what we are calling BIOTA plus 10, is education. So this year, 2013, we are going to make a call for projects in education. We established a conference series that will cover the whole year, focused on the biomes and focused on high school teachers and students. So it's the material and the basis and the talks themselves are not going to be for other scientists. It's going to be focused on high school teachers and students. And we are producing also material, printed material, and material in other medias like CDs and DVDs to be used in high schools. And we are also planning a large exposition on the biodiversity, Brazilian biodiversity, for the second semester. So we are really making an effort that we were not so successful in the first 10 years of the program, that this new term will give us the opportunity to improve teaching and society's concerns in relation to biodiversity and ecosystem service. I myself, my own research projects within the BIOTA are with the Atlantic rainforest, and we've been working on altitudinal gradients. So we are working with the forest right from the coastal area, so at 0 meters in height, up to 1,200 meters, studying the composition of the forest, the floristic composition of the forest, the structure of the forest, the dynamics of carbon and nitrogen in the soil, in the plants, and in the atmosphere. So the project encompasses a microflux tower that measures the exchange of CO2 between the forest and the atmosphere, and the long-term modeling of species distribution and how this could be affected by climate changes. So this is a large project that's been running for about 6 years now, and the further development of this project, we included it in this partnership between BIOTA FAPESP and the British NERC. We submitted the project in December, and we hope it's going to be funded so that we could further develop this study. And in this new project, we are going to compare the forest, and mainly secondary forests, and the process of successions and the outer environment that you have surrounding the forest, between the Atlantic rainforest and the Amazon forest. So we are going to be working in the state of São Paulo, and also in the state of Pará and in the state of Acre. So, but this, as I said, has been submitted, and we are waiting for the evaluation of the referees. One of the very important features of the BIOTA program was the international evaluation that we had. As I said in the beginning, this was annual, then we transformed this in biannual. So we have a panel of experts that will come, will see the presentations, will have contact with the students. It's a large meeting, it's a whole week meeting. The first part of the week devoted more to students, the latter part of the week devoted for the PIs of the project, and this panel presents reports on how the program is developing, and this is used by the steering committee to start new lines or to reinforce areas that are weak for some reason, and to sort of have this outsiders looking at the program is very important for us. And Emilio Moran has been part of this evaluation team. He was part of one of the panels that came to advise us, because one of the areas that we think that we need to get more projects and a better development of the science is on the human dimensions of biodiversity conservation and restoration. And Emilio is a reference in this area, has a lot of experience in the Amazon forest, and we are bringing him to work with us in the Atlantic forest as well.